It's been so long, and everything has worked so great tonight. It's been the best experience. Who could complain? I am MisterRadon. You know that. You are the internet. I know that. And tonight is the Thursday showcase. I know you guys love it. I love doing it. Tonight we're talking about the Game Boy Advance. Never mind the clock on the screen there, because we are not going to be waiting that long to go live. But it's the first of the month. It's a whole new month. It's a whole new showcase. I want to give you guys a nice little surprise, so I want to show you what I've been working on. And this is all thanks to one of my great viewers. BumbleGamer64 put together this new layout for me. I like it a lot. There's still some kinks to work out, but I think it looks pretty good. I hope you guys think so too. So tonight we're going to be looking at 10 games for the Game Boy Advance that people may have overlooked, maybe did not give a shot to, a fair shake, because there are so many Game Boy Advance games out there. I think there's over 1,000, just North America. And we're going to have some imports in here tonight, some Japanese/European imports as well. But like we all know about all the great games for the Game Boy Advance. We know about the Metroidvanias. We know about the Mario Advance series, the Pokemon games, all that. Tonight's list is pretty varied. We've got a lot of genres represented. One is more heavily prominent than the others, but we've got licensed games, we've got import games, we've got a first-party Nintendo game. You don't usually think of those as being overlooked, but I've got one that I don't ever think gets the credit it deserves. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to be playing this first game very poorly. I'm very, very bad at this game. But this is Wade Hickston's Counterpunch. And usually when you see that DSi Games logo, you know you're in for a bad time. But I really dig this game. And you guys are about to see why. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. There's a lot of story to this game that I will probably be skipping just to kind of get right into the action and show off the gameplay, but this game has a very sort of cartoony style. It does not take itself seriously. Here's Wade Hickston, our hero, who is dressed up as a boxer, but I don't know if he actually is a boxer or not. Thank you, Ronnie. Hello, welcome. So Wade Hickston's superpower is that he can fix anything with duct tape. So this tow truck guy is going to drop us off at the pub. He needs to stay out of trouble. We're going to get some grape soda. I'm ordering a grape soda. So I sat in Rocco McScrub's seat, and he is going to fight me. So Wade Hickston's Counterpunch is basically a third-party Punch-Out. It's got a couple things going for it that... I told you guys I'm really bad at this game. I've not really figured this game out yet. It really has more in common with, say, the NES Punch-Out games than Super Punch-Out, because there is a stamina meter that you have to worry about. But the animation in this game is just so good. And the characters are obviously very silly. This guy is throwing a raccoon at me. Hey, I finally dodged a punch. The one thing that I don't really care for this game is that the hit detection seems not quite how I would want it to be. Like, sometimes you know you're hitting the guy, but in Punch-Out, it feels like all of your punches are landing where they're supposed to. And in this game, you kind of punch to the side of their head, and it doesn't quite feel right. You also have two super punches in this game, a la Punch-Out. You use the shoulder buttons to do those. But why you should play this game is because it's Punch-Out. Wee Guy, thank you for the host. It's silly. It's vibrant. It's got a lot of character. And there's not a lot of Punch-Out games out there, and there aren't any, I think, portable Punch-Out games. They may have done one of the Punch-Outs for the NES Classic series, and you can get Punch-Out on the 3DS eShop, but we've never had a Punch-Out proper on a handheld. And Wade Hickston's Counter Punch kind of fills that void. It controls exactly the way you would expect it to. If you've played a Punch-Out game, you can feel right at home with this game immediately. And there's a lot of different characters to fight. They're all kind of silly and have their own unique... Ooh, he got me with 1 second left. Their own unique feel. His superpower is that he has duct tape. He actually doesn't have duct tape. That's why I had to get a ride into town. His superpower is that he can fix anything with duct tape. But unfortunately, you would think if that were your superpower, you would keep some on hand all the time. But I think that another aspect of this game's plot is that, like, this is a universe where everyone is always wearing boxing gloves. One thing that you have to get used to in this game, this is what really throws me off when I'm playing this game, is that compared to Punch-Out, in Punch-Out you usually sort of dodge away from the hits. There aren't any, like, these wide crosses that this guy is throwing at me. So I always try and dodge away from punches, and in this game you kind of have to dodge toward the fist they're punching you with. That can take some getting used to, but other than that, it's Punch-Out. You know, it's not as fluid, it's not as polished. But it does look very good on the GBA, and it scratches an itch, you know? If you want to play Punch-Out, but you've played them all to death, or you aren't at home, Wade Hickston's Counter Punch is a very, very good substitute, in my opinion. It doesn't ever replace the real thing, but it does... offer you, you know, a new experience with similar controls. Ah, the raccoon got me. We guy wants punch in. There's a lot of punch in this game.
4, 5.
I want to try and beat a couple boxers here before I move on to the next game. We got plenty of time. We just got started. And I want to show you guys a little bit more of what this game has to offer. You can see the clear inspiration from NES Punch-Out in particular, with the you know, in between round dialogue or banter. And it has the Super Punch-Out mechanic where, while your opponent's knocked down, you can mash the buttons and get some health back. Art-wise, it reminds me a lot of sort of the silly cartoons, you know, things like Ren and Stimpy, or I'm trying to think of other examples, but sort of the crude but still, you know, silly cartoons that were popular in the 90s. Alright, this should be it for Rocco here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Knockout!
Knockout! Good job, Wade. So Don's gonna be my manager. fight another one of my boxers. The story is obviously just sort of, you know, there to get you from match to match. Pretty unnecessary stuff. We got a beeper message. Oh, you can purchase different ref hats. Let's put the hard rocker on him. I need to check my beeper. This is Big Piney. Oh, I have to beat him without dodging? So you get like different missions and things like that. And the challenge here is that if you can hit him certain ways, I think, you can interrupt his punches, but that damages my stamina. So that didn't work. Challenge failed. So there's a little bit more to it than Punch-Out, where there's, you know, missions and things like that. You're not just fighting person after person in rapid succession. Now we got this map here. Donna's busy, go away. Okay. Let's go to the arcade. Manny Tan. Alpha Street Puncher 2 Turbo Champion Edition Part 3. Okay, so I can learn like different moves from him. So yeah, it's got a lot more depth to it than a simple Punch-Out game does. I don't want to spend any more money. I already bought 2 hats. I just want to fight the next person. Nope. Alright, we gotta earn some cash. Maybe we gotta go to the stadium to do it. No, stadium's closed. The back alley. Fingers McGee. Nope. Everyone's got something to sell. I just want to fight. I just want to hit somebody. Yeah, the music's pretty decent. You gonna drink a beer? Come back and you got a few wins under your belt. Can I fight Rocco again? Yep. Ah, dodged too early. This is going a lot better than it did the first time. And that's kind of the essence of a Punch-Out style game, and what this game captures pretty well is that it's all about pattern recognition and memorization, and once you've got that, then you should be okay. I keep trying to hit him out of that raccoon throw because it feels like an instant knockout move from a Punch-Out game, but I don't know if you can do that or not. And he's got that nice slash top.
3, 4,
Very nice.
5,
Well, there are a lot of other boxers you can fight in this game. You just kind of have to put your time in and figure out where to go next, which is, you know, not as immediately gratifying as a Punch-Out is, but it does give a little bit more longevity to this game, where you're not just going fight after fight after fight. You get some upgrades. You can talk to the townsfolk. It keeps things from getting too repetitive. Even if it can be, you know, if all you want to do is just fight through the game, then it can be a bit of a problem, but that's Wade Hickston's Counterpunch. I feel like you guys got the starting gist of what this game has to offer. It's a Punch-Out game. You're not going to get a ton more than that, but there is more depth to it than your average Punch-Out. So this next game that we're going to play, yeah, unless you've heard of it or tried it or seen a video on it, I guarantee it's the kind of game that you would see on the shelf or in the case at a video game store, and you'd just be like, nah, not that one. But there's a surprising amount of gameplay to this next game. So what we're going to play next is, it's got a trainer because these are going through an emulator. I apologize about that. I think this might be the only one that actually has a trainer on the list tonight, but it's almost done. This is Disney's Lilo and Stitch for the Game Boy Advance. And Lilo and Stitch is a good movie, and there are good Disney games, but this game surprised me with its style of gameplay. And it's got, you know, some pre-rendered video, which the Game Boy Advance doesn't do super great, but it's still decent looking. I don't really care for the music in this game, but the gameplay is really good. So we've got a movies menu. There's a password system. Oh, I just turned the music off. I don't want to do that, even though I just said that I don't really care for it. So the best way to describe, I'm just going to kind of skip through the story here. Lee Guy says this game has sweet tunes right after I got done talking crap about this game's music. As you can see, Disney's Lilo and Stitch is kind of a run-and-gun Contra Metal Slug kind of game. Maybe most directly, the most direct inspirations you can see in this game are Metal Slug and Alien Hominid. And I say Alien Hominid because you have that ability to slow your fall by shooting down, which is a very sort of Alien Hominid kind of thing. But you've got bullets, you've got special upgrades, you've got grenades, pineapple grenades you can throw. But it's not super challenging, but it is tougher than you would think a game like this based on a Disney license would be. So I think this is one that I never would have tried on my own had I not heard about it from other people and how, you know, surprisingly good the gameplay was. And it controls very solid. You've got essentially like a six-way shot. You can shoot forward or backward, straight up, or diagonal up, and then if you're in the air, you can shoot straight down. You've got about 5 lives. You get more lives. You can find them hidden in different areas. You get a limited number of bombs, which feels very Metal Sluggy. It's just a nice little surprising, I think above everything else, that's what really gets me excited about this game, is that I never would have expected this. I would never have guessed that a Disney game would have this style of gameplay. And it does it pretty well. You know, it's not as frantic or adrenaline pumping as a game like Metal Slug. At least I got that extra life. But it's also more relaxing because of that, and it's a good introduction for kids, you know, to get into a game like Contra or Metal Slug by starting off with this game. But as you can see, like it's no slouch. Like I'm not trying my hardest right now, but I'm not just goofing around either. And I'm losing life and lives pretty substantially and pretty quickly. So you cannot fire while crouching, which is kind of strange, but it does add to the difficulty a little bit, because crouching is pretty much how you dodge any attack in this game aside from these pineapple grenades. And so it basically forces you to either be on the defensive or be on the offensive. And that adds an extra little wrinkle that keeps you thinking. I read an article about, you know, Disney Interactive's game policy, and there was a time where, yeah, they didn't care, but I think at this point, you know, it was important to them to at least appeal to their target demographic. And I don't necessarily think that this appeals to their target demographic, but I think that's kind of a good thing. Oh, yeah, I was like, why are there just enemies spawning? Because they like to do this door you gotta shoot gimmick. So you progress from stage to stage. You fight some little sub-bosses. There are larger bosses later on that get more difficult, because this is still the first level. The bullets are bright and pretty easy to see, both yours and the enemies, which is nice. It also... Oof, that was like an instant death. It also has the Metal Slug style gimmick of, you know, if you have stockpiled grenades or special weapons and you lose a life, then they're gone. You know, you kind of have to protect. Your better weapons allow you to be a little more reckless, but at the same time you have to protect your advantages that you accrue. I'm on my last life already, which goes to show you, like, you need to be careful in this game. I just lost my last life, so we got a continue option. It spits us out at the end of the last scene that we were in, with not as many lives. We only get 4 lives compared to the 5 or 6 that you start with. So gonna have to do this whole segment over again. I want to at least get through level 1 for you guys. There's ample health packs, which is nice. Ugh, those pineapples, though, do a lot of damage. You gotta be really careful around those. And the animation you can see in the background there on that waterfall is, I mean, it's a small detail, but it looks nice. Whereas the rest of the background is pretty static. The animation in this game is really good. One more hit and I'm dead, so there we go. Just being a little more careful than usual. I'm trying to, anyways. Let's take a pineapple to the face. It doesn't have any, as I know. I don't know if I might be wrong, but I have not found any alien hominid style melee attacks. So it's in your best interest to keep your distance whenever you can. The stage is pretty lengthy. Wursel, this is thank you. Bumble Gamer 64 made this new overlay. This is the second game on the list, so you've only missed one. We did Wade Hickston's Counterpunch, and now we're playing Lilo and Stitch. Alright, so here's our first boss fight. Which, he just killed me in one shot, but... once you get the pattern down, it's not too bad. Oh, except I was late on that jump. But we can continue right here at the boss fight, which is nice. Nope. Nah, he knows. He knows what I'm trying to do. He just unlocked a movie clip. Alright. So now we're playing as Lilo, and she's got this melee attack. And she's got this, it's an interesting little... Alright, so this looks like it's more stealth-based gameplay. And this feels very much like Out of This World or Flashback does. Without the rigid movement, but like having a walk button and like a hide button. And again, that really shows off how good the animation in this game is. So, this is less run and gunny, obviously. It's a bit more kind of puzzle platformer. Non-linear action. Oh, I think I'm supposed to just, like, time this jump. Yeah, there we go. And she's a little less combat capable than Stitch is, so that changes things significantly. Alright. Get our health back up here. And do some crawling. Get an extra life. Those are always good. It's surprisingly kind of complex. In terms of the different kinds of gameplay, and Lilo's controls are a little more nuanced than Stitch's were. But it's a fun game, and I think that a lot of people would probably... I wrote this game off immediately, where I never even considered it, you know. It was like Lilo and Stitch the game. Because when the Game Boy Advance came out, there were a lot of licensed games, and a lot of them proved to be pretty not great. You know, things like Dexter's Lab. Trying to think of other ones that came out around the same era that were pretty unspectacular, but regardless, this is not a very new... It's not one of the newer Game Boy Advance games. I think this came out in like 2002. So it was maybe a year after the system launched, and it does a much better job of, you know, selling the Lilo and Stitch property, but also being a fun game. And that is obviously an important task to accomplish. Because part of the problem with finding, you know, hidden Game Boy Advance gems is that there are so many games for the system. And a lot of them do kind of fit the, you know, licensed for kids game with varying degrees of quality. And so it would be easy to skip over a game like Lilo and Stitch. But you definitely should give this game a try. It's got action. It's got these sorts of minor puzzles. Let's do that. There we go. You know, simple stuff. It's not anything that's gonna, like... you have to really go far back. It's not anything that's gonna really tax an adult brain, but there is more to this game than the label would suggest. So this next game, you guys, if you are GBA collectors or know about what the expensive games for the system are, you're going to know about this game. And there is a way to... the import block is later, but there is a way to get this game on the cheaper side. And this is Tiny Toon Adventures Scary Dreams, or Tiny Toon's Buster's Bad Dream is the European name for it. It is a treasure-made game, so that's a positive start. And I kind of consider it to be like sort of a starter treasure game, where it's got some depth to the action, but it's not overly complicated. It's not overly difficult. The American version of this game never really got an official release. Copies of it appeared on the odd store shelf, mostly on eBay. So this game can go for about $400 to $500 these days. You can get the English European version for I think like $70 to $80, and it's functionally the exact same. It just has a different title. It's strange because it's like this is the last game that ever used the Tiny Toons license, but it's kind of a beat 'em up. It's kind of a Tiny Toons beat 'em up game, and there's a partner system, so you can get one of 7 different partners here from the Tiny Toons universe, and they all do different things. We're just gonna hit the randomizer, and we got Sneezer. Okay, so it's a beat 'em up, but it's on a 2D plane. One of the first things that threw me off, Daybreaker, thank you for the follow, or for the host. I'm sorry, Daybreaker 3. Thank you very much. I appreciate that greatly. Yeah, it is a very spendy game. So one of the first things that threw me off about this game is that up is jump. L and R don't do anything, which is kind of strange. But you've got your attack button, and then you've got your partner button. And they have their own life bar. You kind of need to protect them and keep them from dying. See, they have their powers that stun enemies. And I've got that bar up in the top, the green bar with a number under it. And that tells you how many sort of super moves or finishers I have. And I get that bar raises up from just doing damage and combos. You can knock enemies into other enemies, which is something that Treasure used later in Astro Boy Omega Factor for the Game Boy Advance, which is another good game. But basically, this is what you do in this game. You just sort of go screen by screen, hitting enemies, killing them, knocking them into other enemies, and then using a fighting game style command move to finish them off. And there's different like locales, different songs. There's a lot of combo depth as far as integrating your partner. Sneezer is a little slow compared to some of the other ones, so it's a little difficult. You kind of have to really plan him in advance because he has a lot of wind up on it. But he also has no like it's just whatever's in front of him basically gets hit by it, so that can be really helpful. That's the trade-off, is it's got a wide attack radius, but it's got a long warm-up. The controls are really responsive in this game. It can be a little hard to avoid taking damage because since it is a beat-em-up that you can't move up or down in, you've got to rely on either punching your enemies out of the way or jumping over them, which can be kind of tough. And your attacks in midair are not as good. You can see when I'm on the ground, I've got like this basic 4-hit combo that I get just by mashing the B button, and it's pretty reliable. In the air, you can get a maximum of I think 2 hits, and so you kind of need to, if you're gonna hit stuff in the air, you want to do it low to the ground. And if you whiff your air attack, you can't do it again until you touch the ground. So You can't just mash the button to get ahead in this game. You gotta really kind of plan out your attacks. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Daybreaker. I appreciate it. So yeah, here we have the next location, and we have our first real wrinkle here, which is enemies that spend their time in the air. And you can go up and chase after them, or you can wait for them to swoop down and get them when they miss their attack. We're just gonna clear all these at once. We got a lot of finishers built up right now. And there's different combos you can figure out by changing up the timing, or, you know, implementing your partner characters at different points of the combo. I'm not really that good with using Sneezer, but that's okay. Random select can be a fickle mistress. I think that the price tag for this game is a little high for what it is. I think if you're gonna actually seek out a cart of this game, that is something that's kind of a collector's only sort of deal, because the gameplay is a little bit repetitive and shallow, especially if you're gonna shell out a few $100s for a copy of this game. But I do think it's one that, like I said, it really is. It serves as a very good intro into Treasure's design philosophies and how they emphasize not just, you know, getting from point A to point B, but you know, playing the game with some style and getting good combos and things like that. There isn't really a score in this game that you can rack up by doing the combos, but it certainly does help clear each of the areas faster if you can combo the enemies into each other. Yeah. People who have a copy of this game know exactly what they've got. You're not going to accidentally find a copy of this game on the cheap, most likely, because it didn't really get a release. It's not in the hands of a lot of people. Most of the people who own a copy these days are people who bought it because they know that, you know, a retail release wasn't really how people got this game in the first place. I'm sure originally there were some people who lucked out and were like, oh, a Tiny Toons game on the Game Boy Advance? Like, that's interesting. And lo and behold, didn't realize they were buying something that most people in this country have never seen. Ugh. I tried. And the Game Boy Advance is region-free, so if this is something that you absolutely do have to own, getting the European version is a much better route to go. It goes for a lot because people know now that, like, it's a treasure game, which people like to play and own, but they know that the European release is the only one that's feasible. So that price definitely got inflated as a result. By holding down and pressing attack, I've got this uppercut, which is really helpful for moving enemies around and also setting up big combos. So I am not 100%, but I don't believe there is, because to my knowledge, because they're sort of self-contained devices, the handhelds released in Europe are still manufactured in Japan, and so they are released with a 60 Hz NTSC screen. I might be wrong about that, but I can't recall ever hearing anything about, like, any region differences hardware side with handhelds. But yeah, it gets a little repetitive. It's on the simpler side, but it's still difficult. Like, already, this is just the second area, and I have a hard time getting through here without really taking a lot of damage because of the variance of the enemy's attacks and the different kinds of enemies on the screen and the boulders falling from the ceiling. Like, there's a lot to keep track of here. It's not just a simple kids game. It just doesn't have as many layers as a game like Gunstar Heroes or something along that line. Alien Soldier. What is up, Ragna Blaze? So we got a boss fight here against Elmira, who is crushing it. Alright, so I need to sneak up and hit her from behind to really get damage going. And once I do, it adds up pretty quickly. I'm just going to burn through my specials here and get a nice long combo. Oh! We added an extra wrinkle to the boss fight. Oh! I'm sorry, Sneezer. Didn't mean to throw you under the bus like that. I don't want to die! Nope, she got me. Alright, let's try and get a different... There we go, Hampton. What does Hampton do? Well, he gets hugged. He's hug fodder. Maybe that's all he does. He doesn't... If he does anything, he's not doing it now, so we may have to wait until after we get out of this boss fight. I think it's a shame that you can't pick other characters with different moves, because I think that would really... If you could still have the partner select, but then also choose a main character, and they would each play a little differently, I think that would add a lot of replayability to this game, and make it much more worth the... not the price tag, but the exploration of this game. It could have been a lot better if that were an option that were available to the player, I think. I don't think I'm gonna live. My health is too low. We got a nice air combo there, though. Oh, we might have it. We got it. That's close. Wursel, have you ever thought about getting a Game Boy player for the GameCube? I love my Game Boy player. Oh, sorry about that. So, level 2, more the same, but more difficult. Let's see if Hampton's ability ever... I think he might just be a decoy, which fits Hampton. Ern's here. Hi, Ern. Yep, new layout. Like I said, I was working on that all day today. And again, big thanks to BumbleGamer64 for putting this together for me. We've been talking about it for months now. I think we started Started the planning in June, July at least, maybe June. But it finally came together, and it's still a bit of a work in progress, but it's very functional right now. All right, that's Tiny Toon Adventures: Scary Dreams. It's responsive. It's got good control. Price tag is a huge barrier, but it's worth checking out if you get the opportunity. Next is a game that was pretty close to being a launch title for the GBA, if not actually a launch title. And it's basically Mario Kart, which you think I wouldn't really care for, but it's kind of just a fanboy problem for me. Like, I really like the characters and the stages in this game and the music. I think a lot of people don't realize, and it stopped being used right after the sort of early wave of Game Boy Advance games, but the Game Boy Advance was really good at offering up sort of 8-bit chiptune style music, and there's a lot of great Konami fan service characters and music in this game that make it worth looking into. So this is Konami Crazy Racers, or YY Racing as they're singing in the song, because Konami had a series, two platformers for the NES called YY World that was sort of like a Konami All-Stars game. And this is their attempt at sort of like a Konami Mario Kart. It's not perfect. It's a little rough around the edges. It is a very early Game Boy Advance game, but it's got some neat little features that other games of this ilk don't have. For example, you can get licenses. It's not enough to just go from cup to cup. You actually have to get licenses to qualify ahead and try new courses. So here's our main stable of characters. We've got Goemon from Mystical Ninja. We've got Gray Fox from Metal Gear Solid. We have a Moai from Gradius. We've got a baseball player from Power Pro Baseball, I believe it's called. And an octopus from Parodius. Niami from Poppin' Music. Dracula from Castlevania, obviously. And I always forget this person. Oh, from Twinbee. I don't remember her name, but she's from Twinbee. There are 4 other secret characters as well from the Goemon series of games, from Poppin' Music. I think there's another Parodius character and another Gradius character, if I remember right. We're going to go with Poppin' Music because, of course, and I pressed the wrong button. So here's a sort of a taste of the really good style, like Game Boy NES style chiptune music. There are 4 cups. You have to get your license to try the later cups, so we're gonna just at least do the first cup. The power-ups are also Konami inspired, and this is the Goemon stage, so you can hear the classic Goemon music. The engine noises aren't great in this game. I apologize about that, but hopefully you can still hear the good music. Part of the problem that I have with Mario Kart spin-offs is that Mario Kart power-ups are so iconic that, like, when you pick them up, you immediately kind of have an understanding of what they're going to do. And in this game, it's less intuitive, but... Oh, fell in the water. It still plays otherwise like exactly like a Mario Kart game would, or how you'd expect one to play. Yeah, the engine sound is a little tinny. It sounds a little bit better on actual GBA hardware coming out of those speakers, Wii Guy, but it is a little overpowering in this instance. So I'll probably just drop a few stages then, since you guys are reacting so unfavorably to the engine sound. I apologize, but you know, what are you gonna do? I won't let this game overstay its welcome. Alright, we might be able to squeeze a first place win here. Yeah, there we go. What are you, Wursel, what are you expecting? Does this game also have the kart rubber banding? I haven't played it enough to tell you whether or not it does. I haven't really had too much of a problem with it, though. Gekido Advance. No, Gekido Advance is not on tonight's playlist. So this is a Twin Bee stage. So there's a lot of clouds and jumping and... I like the course design in this game. I think it's a little more... not complicated, but it just feels more fun than like most Mario Kart courses, in my opinion. If there was a way that I could turn off this engine sound, I would. I'm sorry. They don't. I looked actually when I was testing the game. I was like, oh, can I like turn the sound effects off? No, you can't. You're stuck with this if you're gonna play this game. But I think it's a neat idea, and I kind of wish more companies would have taken this route. Like, yeah, having a mascot kart racer is a pretty lazy idea for a game, but, you know, Mario Kart obviously works. Sega and Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing is so good. It's nice to see Konami's take on the formula, even if it's not that innovative. You know, getting to play as Konami characters is enough for me, and they're weird choices. You know, having Dracula instead of Simon Belmont, having Gray Fox instead of Solid Snake, including characters from games like Poppin' Music and Parodius. Obviously, you know, this game was developed for a Japanese audience, but there was no attempt by Konami when this game came stateside to change those characters into things that Americans would have recognized more readily, which I think is kind of interesting. So yeah, I think you can look at the map right now I'm playing on normal and not hard. That might change on hard, but there's really no rubber banding happening here. It's an honest kart racer, which is pretty nice too. Oh, Wurzel, you should play them. At least the second one, Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing Transformed. Ton of characters, tons of like nice fan service tracks, like really great Sega tracks, things you wouldn't expect, like really varied gameplay. It's not as finely tuned as like Outrun 2 is, but it's a very fun game. I like playing that game a lot. Alright, this will be the last track we do. This is a Gradius track. Or it might be Parodius, actually. I'm not sure. No, it's Gradius. All the characters have digitized voice as well when they pass you, so that's a nice little touch too. Ooh, nice shot. Yeah, I got it cheap as well, so I think it was in a Humble Bundle, and it took me a while to get to it as well, but when I did, it was very appealing to me. And the PC version I think is the best one because it has a lot of extra hidden characters, and they're weird. They're really weird. Like, why is this a character in a kart racing game? But it's fun and silly because of that. Yeah, I don't think this game goes for very much. I would think it couldn't be more than $20. I might be wrong. But I don't think there's a lot of demand for this game, and it was an early Game Boy Advance game, so I don't know how many copies got printed, but it's pretty fun. And it does have good music, if you can get past the engine sound effects. But that's the third course. You guys ready for the import block? They're pretty, for the most part, these are pretty safe picks in my opinion, but... Alright, let's look at some import games. This first one is also, I think, if not a launch title for the GBA in Japan, a pretty close to launch title, and it's one of my favorite Game Boy Advance games. I really just love the style of gameplay this game has. What's up, Saturn? How's it going? This is Kuru Kuru Kururin. This is the European version, so it is in English. There were 3 games in the series, 2 for the Game Boy Advance. and one for the GameCube. This is the only one that made it outside of Japan, so you can actually get the European version of this game and get it in English, but you don't really need text for this game. It's pretty straightforward. It is a monkey ball kind of style, get your object to the goal kind of game, which I'm a complete sucker for. And the sequel to this game, which I believe is Kururin Paradise, is actually a much better, well-received game. But I thought I would just keep it simple and show you guys the first game in the series to give you a taste of what this game has to offer if you haven't played it. So there's a practice mode. You can customize your helicopter. There's an adventure mode and a challenge mode. We'll just hop into challenge mode so I can show you sort of the course design and the base principle of this game. So we've got this helicopter that is always spinning. I have a horn, which is 2 horns actually, which don't do anything. And if you hold down the B or A buttons, you move more quickly than normal, but you're always rotating. And so the goal of this game is to get to the goal of each stage as quickly as you can without bumping into the walls. I already bumped into a wall, so I lost time and I lost a piece of health. It is kind of like irritating stick for the Neo Geo or the PS1, where so yeah, absolutely. And so your goal is to just sort of get the best time, to get different medals, to do it cleanly and not run out of lives. Adventure mode has like a story that involves finding all of this little bird's family, which you have to pick them up on the course in addition to making your way to the goal. But I mean, this is basically just the exact kind of game that I look for. I like sort of these obstacle course. I don't even really know what to call them, because they're games like Super Monkey Ball or Irritating Stick or Kororinpa, the marble games for the Wii. A-Scythe was a stick once. What happened? You're not a stick anymore? Let's... Alright, I don't have any extra parts for my... So the later games in the series add a couple more gameplay wrinkles. I think in Kururin Paradise you can change the direction your helicopter is spinning every so often. You got better. Oh, that's good. Glad to hear it. But because you're always spinning in one direction, it kind of makes, you know, these segments trickier than you would expect. Right? Like, it's a simple premise, but in execution, you have to be really precise with your timing, because you might get stuck if you don't act quickly enough. Like in that area, I had to come into that top area, but then as my other blade sort of spun out, it gave me the opportunity to leave. And if I hesitated there for too long, I would have just gotten stuck. So, we'll start the adventure. Oh, wait, I don't want to train. I guess I'm stuck training. Alright. And the timer doesn't start until you leave the opening area, so you can get your helicopter in the correct orientation you want to be in before you actually head out. These heart areas refill your damage, so if you do bump into any walls, you'll get more lives before you can progress. There we go. It's a really simple game, but it can be really addictive if you like these kinds of games. I can see some people maybe not digging it as much as I do, but this is one of my favorite style of games to play. Oop. So, this was one of the first Game Boy Advance games I ever tried, and I immediately was in love with it. You've got these springs, which reverse your propeller direction. So the game adds a little bit, you know, here and there. You can go for different times, go for records. You pick up different paint jobs. So now I can customize my helicopter. just navigate my way through this maze. We'll do a couple more levels because there really isn't a whole lot for me to show you guys in this game, but I think this is one that's very easy to pick up and put down. Got some wobbly helicopter blades. It's very simple to understand, so even if you do get it in Japanese, like you're not going to be lost. It makes pretty perfect sense. I think it's a shame that Nintendo never did bring this series stateside. I'm not really sure what their reasoning behind it was, because it seems pretty straightforward, and it's not unlike a mobile game. I think it would actually be interesting to see this series appear on mobile somehow. Alright, I picked up my first family member. You can see him chilling on the wing of my helicopter. Chikurin. And so we've collected our first bird family member, and now we're in the ocean background. Different music. Different background to enjoy. So yeah, that's Kuru Kuru Kururin. Pretty simple, really addictive, really fun. I like it. Now we're going to move on to our sixth game. Wow, we're already at number 6. It's only been about an hour. This is probably going to be a short showcase, but that's okay. GBA games are sort of meant to be picked up and played and put down, and especially if you have an SP and you can suspend the gameplay. This is another import game. It's a puzzle game, and I think that's something that a handheld system has to do pretty well. Like, the Game Boy came out with Tetris, and that very much sort of set the tone that you would play puzzle-type games on a Game Boy. It just makes sense. It's something you can do to kill time while in a waiting room or something like that. This is Guru Logic Champ, or Guru Logichamp. It's got these cool ducks, these fat, weird ducks that make weird faces, but I like that. The best way I can describe this game is it's kind of like Picross. Kind of, but sort of played from within the puzzle. You'll see in a second. It is in Japanese, so you have to deal with that. But there's not a lot of menu navigation. There's not a lot of text you need. It's got really weird sort of animated cutscenes with these weird ducks just sort of hanging out, doing different stuff. Driving cars. I have no idea what's going on in the story of this game, but the gameplay itself is pretty easy to understand. It can get difficult quickly. It starts off very simple, and that's the mark of a good puzzle game. You should be able to pick it up and understand what's going on, and then have it sort of ramp the difficulty from there. Alright, we're gonna skip. I mean, that duck's pretty cool. He's got his hands in his pants. Maybe we're not gonna skip it. He's pretty amazing. Look at that. Look at that creature. That specimen. So yeah, again, I have no idea what's happening, but the gameplay itself is pretty fun. I guess he's upgrading technology. Alright, we'll go ahead and skip. So you've got to do these sort of like little rescue operations. You move around the world map, and this has 10 puzzles to it. And so these have their own cutscenes as well. So we've got this drinking faucet on the ground that these guys are going to take to damage, and now you end up with like a starving bird. These guys are running, they're exercising, building up a sweat. Alright. So the goal of this game is to complete the picture. You can see in the top left what it wants me to make, this little rice ball. And all you can do is move from side to side, shoot blocks, and rotate the picture. And you have a set number of blocks to do it in. And that's what he's explaining right now. So, this is stage 1. I'm just got to make this little top. And you'll get, you know, some of the pieces are on the board already, and it's got this outline to help me out in these first stages. You just shoot the 4 blocks into place and create the picture that it wants you to make. So it's got that similarity to Picross. Listen to that beat, too. It's got that awesome puzzle clear beat. So it starts off very simple. This next puzzle is going to require me to actually rotate the picture, which I do with the L and R buttons. And it still has the layout, but obviously, like, if I shoot these, they're going to go all the way off the board. So you have to sort of do it in order to create the music note. Really simple premise. It gets much more complicated. I think this is a really neat puzzle game. It's sort of a new concept. It's not just a well-style Tetris game or anything like that. Oh, I have to take blocks first. Okay, so then I can put that down, rotate it, and go across the top like that. So it's a really simple idea, but it takes some planning to figure out what order you need to do these steps in. And you can also place the blocks to, you know, function as a gap, to close a gap, but then take them out and use what progress you make to build in a different direction. I'm pretty sure later levels remove those guide markers that tell you where the blocks need to go. So you have to compare what you've got on the board to what's up in the corner and figure it out from there. So in this area I only get 2 blocks. But it's still pretty simple. There's a lot of stages to this game. A really nice difficulty curve. You know, so you're not, when you're starting the game out, you're not, like, freaking out, going like, oh my god, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. But by the end of the game, you're not just going through the motions, like, okay, yeah, this goes there, that goes there, whatever. I made some pudding. And I'm a big fan of the Picross games, so this sort of using pixels to make pictures in a different way is appealing to me. It's something that I immediately kind of took to and was like, this is a lot of fun. I like doing this. Alright, we have to do that. There we go. So even something simple as drawing a square in the inside of a shape requires a different layer of thought when you have to be adding dots in from the outside. This is a very large one. Oh, I missed that part. It's alright. We got it. So again, this is Guru Logic Champ. I've seen it as Guru Logichamp a couple times too. I'm not sure which is the actual correct translation, but final stage of this rescue. I think it's a pretty good puzzle game. Nope, didn't want to do that. What I did want to do... See, already I'm kind of like, wait. Already, I'm okay. I think what I need to do is do that part last, so that I have enough spare blocks to do that. And I can fill those in and fill in the side. Yeah, see, already it's taking me a little bit more time to figure these puzzles out. And then after you clear a set number of puzzles, you've rescued the weird duck bird thing in question by drawing the thing that they need. And then we waterboard that poor duck. It's a silly game with a sense of humor, but it's also like a good little puzzler that I think is worth looking into. The GBA has a lot of little hidden sort of puzzle games that you might not expect, and this is just one of those examples. We're going to see what the second rescue is all about, and then we're going to move on to the next game. It's going to involve a bathroom. You just locked the bathroom. Oh, business duck. Alright, we gotta get him in the bathroom. But that's for another time. That was Guru Logic Champ. I think that was a good show of what that game has to offer. It's an interesting little puzzler, especially for fans of the Picross games. Just an interesting extra little wrinkle on it. So this next game is going to close out the import block, and I know I'm going to disappoint some people because they're going to think that a certain game is coming, and it's not. But this is my choice because it's my showcase. So we're going to close out the import block with a game that is, on its surface, not super impressive looking, but I think it's pretty fun to play, and it's got some decent music and visuals. This is Metal Gun Slinger. It's got this great vocalized theme song. Billy McDoleen. This is a basic platformer with a Western bent to it. It's not unlike a Mega Man game. It usually draws a lot of comparisons to Mega Man games. We're going to skip the story because I can't read any of it. So we play as Billy, who gets ambushed right here. This part I can't just skip through. I have to actually like pump my way through the text. And this weird robot owl drops me a gun. Pretty demonic looking gun, as you'll see here in a second. It's got like tentacles on the bottom and an eyeball. Alright, so this is stage one. You have two bars at the top. You've got a hit point bar and a GF bar. I don't know what GF stands for other than girlfriend. When you pause the game, you can redo the the controls. There's 4 different control schemes. You've got different badges and different things called gun arts. I think the GF stands for gun force. And you collect these throughout the game. There's only 5 of each, and the descriptions are in Japanese, but they're pretty easy to understand. So it's a 3-button game. You can move, you can shoot, you can jump gluten-free, good fudge, get food. Those are some good suggestions. So we've got this. We can run around. We can shoot in, again, like Lilo and Stitch, in 6 directions. You can also, if you do certain things with the controls, like you can run and shoot up, but if you shoot from a certain direction first, you can stand in place and shoot in the corners. You can jump, and then you've got your arts button. And as you progress through the game, you unlock different arts, and that's what your GF meter uses. The first art you get is the Wildcat art, and what the Wildcat art lets you do is get past enemies. I'm not great at using it, so I'm going to bump into people a lot and take damage. But the purpose of the Wildcat is to, tutorial boards, let you move through enemies without taking damage and without fighting them. You can also combo them together if you have the meter to do it. And you also get a combo going when you dodge through things and then shoot them. You get more points for doing that. And at the end of each stage, you get a ranking. I don't know if the ranking actually determines anything other than, personal score. But graphically, it's not super impressive. It controls pretty well. There's the added wrinkle of using the different badges and using the different arts to change the way you play. But it controls pretty well, and it's pretty fun. It's also a pretty short game. This is a game you can beat in about 3 hours. So it's nice to just sort of pick this up like a Mega Man game and kill an afternoon with it, or a couple afternoons, because you can save and come back later. And using each of the different arts changes up the gameplay enough that you get different abilities. These boards are all explaining how to play the game. I'd like to go up there, if I may be so bold. Alright, we have 5 bullets. Pretty much everything you think you would be able to do in this game, you can. Like, it's nice to just find a rope and press up, and, like, yeah. You can also, you see me do, like, little rolls and flips and things there. And you get those by just adding different diagonals to your movement. It's a pretty fun game, Ramses. Like I said, it controls really well. It is very Mega Man inspired. It's not the best game, the flashiest game that the GBA has to offer, but it's fun to play. And it's simple. And so even though if you can't read the text and the dialogue... I'm sorry, guys, 1 second. Even if you can't read the text and the dialogue, it's pretty easy to understand what's going on and pick it up. This is Metal Gun Slinger. Thank you, Ursula. Yeah. And so you get graded based on your time, and any bonuses you picked up, you get a grade. I got a C because I'm not very good at games with grading systems, unless they're rhythm games or fighting games, and even then, usually not that great. So then we got some more dialogue. Robot Owl shows back up. That guy's got a funny looking hat. And so I've got my base here, and I can see my scores for each level. I can see what the bounties are for each of these people that I have to kill, I assume. There's a tutorial button and an endgame button. So we just go to this area, and we can pick this stage. And it's a Western game, so a lot of the backgrounds look kind of similar, but the music does change from stage to stage, which is nice. And the little orbs that these guys drop when you kill them refill your GF meter. So you can only do... okay, so rolling is you tap down twice to roll. And I think you can get a higher jump out of it. Or you can do like a slide tackle, depending on your timing or what button you press. You can also float in midair for a bit. So there's a lot of wrinkles you get, like, and I got an arts combo for doing that. You know, by doing flashy things and acrobatic things, you get more points, and you can protect yourself a little bit better from enemies. So it's a cool game because I always like games that value style. You know, games like Devil May Cry or Bayonetta that it's not enough to survive. You know, you want to do things flashy and kill guys in a way that looks cool. So there's a lot to learn, there's a lot to figure out, especially because if you can't read Japanese, you can't read the tutorials. But it's a straightforward game, and at the same time it has enough complexity to it to keep it fresh through more than one gameplay. If you want to try and use your arts more and get big combos, or go for a speedrun timer, like all that stuff is tracked in the game, and you can improve on your best scores until you get to a point where you can play the game in a way that looks really cool and feels really satisfying to play. I think it would have been cool if we had gotten this game in America, but at the same time, like I don't know how well it would have done, because it does sort of have a generic, aside from its Western theme. You know, this could be any game. This could be. It feels very generic, is what I'm trying to say. Like the characters don't look particularly noteworthy to me. The stages are all sort of just sandy and brown. Yeah, I think it would have been criticized for its graphics as well, so I think that's a very good point. It's an early-ish GBA game. I think this is also 2002, so we're looking at like year 2 of the system, but a lot of GBA stuff was about, like, wow, a handheld can do that? And this game doesn't really push that envelope. It doesn't have a lot to offer graphically, but it does have a lot to offer from a gameplay perspective. Dialogue, 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 dialogue. That guy's in love with that girl because she wears a weird shirt that shows off the insides of her boobs. So here we got an extra, like, we have an auto-scroller where I have to grab coins and power-ups, but also kill enemies and survive for a set amount of time. I can't really use my arts here. But it offers, you know, an extra different mode of gameplay. It's not just a Mega Man-ish side-scroller. different stages have different different styles of gameplay. And the music's pretty solid. It's not, it doesn't blow you away, but it's also pretty fun to listen to. Just generic, heroic video game music. Looks like we got a boss fight coming. So this is where, you know, using your arts comes in really handy. I'm almost out of health. Ah, I did it too late. I got greedy. That's Metal Gunslinger. Like I said, it's not a blow you away kind of game, but it's also a kind of game that when you start playing it, you appreciate it more because of how tight the controls are and how satisfying that combo system can be the more you use it. And you get different arts and different gun powers. The different badges do different things as you progress through the game. So like a Mega Man game, you can choose on the fly you know, like how you want to approach certain parts of the level. Do you want to dodge? Do you want to have an ability that lets you double jump or shoot in a different way? There's variance to the game once you get deeper into it. And even though it is still a short game, but it stays fresh throughout. And that's one of the reasons why I really like Metal Gunslinger. So that is our import block. We're going to get back into the domestic games. And I promised you guys a first-party Nintendo game that I don't think enough people have played. I think this game is really, really good. And I know some people talk about it a lot, but I don't think a lot of people have tried it. And so we are going to go in to Murica. Back to Murica, as Ronnie says. Absolutely. With a later Game Boy Advance game, which is DK King of Swing. DK King of Swing is so easy to control, and especially on like an SP controller or a GameCube Game Boy Player controller, really fun, really satisfying controls. So the story of this game is that there's like a jungle competition, like a jungle Olympics, and they got this barrel full of gold, silver, and bronze medals to determine who will be the hero of the jungle. This game rocks. Yeah, I love this game, Ramses. So he's like, Cranky's like, don't let anyone steal these medals. And King K. Rool just immediately steals them. You should buy it, Ramses. I don't think it goes for very much. So here's the tutorial of the game. So all you can use other buttons, but the bulk of this game is played just using the L and R triggers. So L to move left, R to move right. Simple as that. You can use the control pad as well. If you press them both at the same time, you jump. And now here's the bulk of this game, are these pegs. So you jump up, you grab the pegs, and as you grab the pegs, you rotate around them. So you grab it, you hold it, you spin in a circle. And then you can jump off and grab other ones. You can swing around. You can kind of crawl along them with the right timing. And that's what you're going to be doing for most of this game. How to climb pegboards. Pretty much the same thing. Pegboards are just bits of the gameplay area that have grabbable pegs on them. You can also move in air. The same way you move on the ground, you just hold a direction while you're in air, and you can air control that way. Oh, you've never seen this game before, Wee Guy? Yeah, this is one of my favorite Game Boy Advance games. And it has a sequel in DK Jungle Climber, which I think is for the DS? It might also be for the Game Boy Advance. I'm not sure. Alright, now we learn how to attack, which is basically hold down both triggers, and when you flash, then you attack. Now, all these bananas I've been collecting actually have a purpose. So if you have my life bar down there in the corner, I have 3 hearts. If I press B at any point, I can spend 10 bananas and gain back a heart. In addition, if I press A, I turn invincible, I jump higher, and I attack differently. And I'll show you, it costs 20 bananas, but I'll show you the difference. So we're just going to go up really quick. Whoop. I'm going to go up, climb a little bit. So when I attack a barrel, or anything, you bounce off of it. If I go bananas, I rip through them Sonic style, and can take out multiple and clear a stage much more quickly. Whoop. That's not good. Okay, I don't know why I'm being dumb about this. Hang on, guys. Jump. Get some more bananas. Reach the exit. And there are other bonuses like Crystal Coconut. I don't know why they brought back Crystal Coconuts. I don't think they've ever been in a Donkey Kong game until Donkey Kong 64. And I think before that, they were just part of the weird, gross Donkey Kong Country cartoon. It is floaty, but that's kind of... Like, when you see how the game plays, it's very much in this sort of vertical stage style. It's not like a Donkey Kong Country game. So the tutorial is actually a pretty accurate representation of what the game is like. We've got this great remix of the DKC1 map theme. Alright, so we go into our first level, and you can see it's only about as wide as this board. And the stages get larger and more complicated as well, but we just got to go up for the most part. Get bananas. This is another game too that, like, when you start playing it, you get a greater appreciation for it as well. Like Ramses said, this game rocks. I think this game rocks. So you clear it one stage at a time. You get to this area, new area, different layout. It reminds me a lot of like DK Jungle Beat, like these mid 2000s Donkey Kong games that sort of really favored unique controls. All right, we got an enemy here. We're gonna attack. He drops a Crystal Coconut. We get that. It's good. We swing off. And clear the stage. Donkey Konga, yep. So that opens up 2 new levels. We can go to Contraption Cave, or we can go to Tropical Treetops. We'll go to the cave. And already we got more enemies. Oh, took some damage. That's okay. We'll get that life back. We're just gonna wait for this guy. And so your L button is always Donkey Kong's left hand, and your R button is always his right hand. So no matter which way you're facing, which way you're rotating, you just have to keep track of that. And we've got, like, you know, already we're getting some weird stuff. We got like a switch that we pull down to create pegboards. We can break these barrels to see if there's anything good inside. We also need to break this barrel to proceed. Grab this one. Oh, I just want to get out of there. Nah, dang it. didn't want to take any damage. Alright, and true to Donkey Kong form, we've got a bonus barrel there. So I'm trying to not be an idiot and grab this. Might need to charge it. Yeah, there we go. We get the bonus barrel. So it is both very much like and very unlike a Donkey Kong Country game. Just sort of an interesting best of both worlds, you know. It's new and fresh, but it's also very familiar if you've played a Donkey Kong Country game. The concepts and things in this game are going to be very easy to understand. Oh, God. Well, I screwed that up. But that's okay. We're not trying to 100% the game or anything right now, but there is a lot of hidden stuff you can find, also like a Donkey Kong Country game. So here we've got another new idea, which is these dials, and depending on which way you turn them is which way they rotate. So you have to try and grab different ones with different hands and go a different way. It's just a really cool idea for movement in a game, and it works. That's the big thing, is that it works. It controls very tightly, and if you make a mistake, you can pretty much just chalk it up to, oh, that was my fault. Like, I didn't do that correctly. Which is important for a game. It's important for any game, but it's especially important for a game that uses sort of a unique control scheme. There's a lot of different levels to play, and already, like you saw, that was the second level I tried, and it threw a lot of new things at me, like the dials and the levers. This one's got rotating, moving pegs. Move on to the next area. It's a pretty fun game to move quickly in also. If you can get the hang of it and start moving around the board fast. Like, you don't need to. You never really need to do that. But when you can pull it off, it's fun to just sort of zip through and grab things quickly and ascend as fast as you can. Ray Donkey Kong? I think I've used that before. I think I've actually used that screen name somewhere. We're going to play through the first world, probably, and then move on. So this dial changes where this gap in the ceiling is. So not only do we have to get it where we want it, but then we have to line ourselves up properly to get by. Oop, gonna take some damage there. That's alright. I'm being a little reckless and not killing enemies. That's fine. I think it's on the map screen. I can kind of show you guys my completion percentage. Do both hands have to be gripping to do the charge move? It's not so much that they have to be gripping. Let me see if I can show. Yeah, they do. You have to be on solid ground. And they both. No, they don't have to both be gripping. They have to both be held down. You can't be in the air and do it. You can be on the ground and do it, or you can be swinging and swinging from one peg and holding the other fist down and that can get you charging a little more freely. Screwed that up. This is a little tricky. Because I'm bad. It's tricky because I'm bad. This is only like the 3rd or 4th level, depending on what order you do things in. Ugh! Come on, Donkey Kong. Alright, we're gonna charge, shoot up, just grab something, anything, please. Twist this next one up. Start charging and launch. There we go. Very good, very good. Get a banana. Alright, so this lever we have to pump. And I'm not doing it the right way. So see, little puzzly bits like this that really make you think about the limited... Kirby games do this concept really well, where they limit what you can do, but then they make you use that limited movement in a way that's really creative. And I like that. I like that a lot. Alright, so we're going to look at our first boss fight here. Kongozuma's Castle. Pretty much as simple as you'd expect a first Donkey Kong boss to be. Oop, he got me. And for boss fights, it's smart to kind of, if you can, to stockpile your bananas so you can either attack better or refill your health mid-fight. Which I am doing desperately because I'm not that good at this game, as much as I like it. There's our gold medal. So that's World 1 of DK King of Swing. I really recommend this game. It's fast. You can do levels very quickly, and it auto saves at the end of each one. You can see here how many medals I need to get. 8 gold, 8 silver, 8 bronze, 20 crystal coconuts. And then we move on to Wild West World. You can see he dropped 5 medals. I think there's 5 medals per world. Ish. So probably not that many worlds. Probably like 5 or 6. It's a pretty short game, but it's gratifying and fun to play. Obviously, it's not made by Rare, so I'm a little disappointed that they're already reusing songs, but when you don't have David Wise in your back pocket to compose great music over and over and over and over and over again, you know. But that's that game. It's one I really like. I think it shows, 10% complete. I played that for like, 20 minutes? You can burn through this game pretty quickly, but it's fun. And that's the big thing. It's fun to play. I can't say anything more kind than that. It's enjoyable. So, let's move on to our 9th game of the night. And this one was... I think this one might catch some of you off guard if you haven't known about this one, because this is a port, and it's a port of a very prominent sort of high-budget game that came out around the same time. And you would think that the Game Boy Advance would not handle it too well, but I think this one handles it really, really, really well. This is Max Payne for the Game Boy Advance, and I gotta say, I really like this game.
To make any kind of sense of it, I need to go back 3 years.
Right away, you're getting voice acting.
The pain started. I was still on the force back then. NYPD, Manhattan, Midtown North Precinct, Hell's Kitchen.
So when are you coming to work for me, Detective Payne?
Obviously, the audio quality isn't great.
Oh, sorry, Alex. Show him the baby come first. See? My last smoke. It's bad for the baby.
But it's impressive.
That's you, Max. A regular Boy Scout.
See, Alex.
You're still out for poker Thursday night, right?
Like taking candy from a baby.
So we're gonna skip the rest of the intro. You guys have maybe played Max Payne, or you know, it's a long intro, is what I'm trying to say. So it's a very actiony kind of game with some minor puzzle-solving elements.
I came in from the cold and the dark.
Blah blah blah. Max is moody and mopey. It's an isometric style game with polygons. Not unlike the early Tony Hawk games for the Game Boy Advance. You've got basically 4 buttons. You've got a jump action button, a shoot button, a weapon select button, and then a bullet time button. So it really kind of pares down Max Payne's gameplay into something pretty dang simple, honestly. But it's that aspect of making it simple enough for the Game Boy Advance that also kind of strips away like everything but the core essential elements of this game. And so what you're left with, because it's done well, is the best parts of Max Payne in a handheld version that plays very, very well. When you're in bullet time, you don't really need to aim too much, which is super great. Why would you not use bullet time to kill other people? You know, I wonder. So what this feels like to me, because it has this very kind of... Oh, also the select button helps you restore your health. What this reminds me of, because of the isometric perspective and the sort of comic booky dialogue boxes, is the Super Nintendo Shadowrun game, if that were just an action game, basically. You have to aim in the general direction of enemies, but it's not like... It's not a huge... The game doesn't basically punish you, because it knows. That's one of the great things about this game, is that the game knows that you're taking a game as complicated as Max Payne and making it for the Game Boy Advance. You have to make some sacrifices as far as control is concerned. You have to give the player some concessions. And so the aiming in this game is pretty lenient. And that's a very good thing. It moves quickly. It runs so smoothly. The frame rate in this game is great. I was just really, really immediately blown away by how faithful this game was, and at the same time, how it's an odd mixture of ambitious and simplified, you know? Like, they had to do a lot to make this game run on the Game Boy Advance, and at the same time, the game doesn't really cut any corners. It's really fun to play. And as you mentioned, Wursel, yeah, there's interactables. You can destroy the environment. I just shot up a mirror. I shot up a soda machine. There's different weapons. You can open doors and find items. There's exploding barrels. It's not maybe the best way to play Max Payne, but it's really fun, you know? Well, trying to shoot this water cooler. Perfect. Take that, couch. I'm Max Payne. I'm Mark Wahlberg. I don't have any more painkillers. So I gotta be real good. Dual M9s. Yeah, I never saw the movie either, but I do remember that it starred Mark Wahlberg. My M9 ammo is full, which is good because I'm going to be shooting 2 of them now. A medicine cabinet. Thankfully. Alright, power should be back on now, I think. There's a phone in here. I don't think I need to use that. I was just really surprised. I mean, I kind of don't think I should have been, because Rockstar didn't really cut corners with any of their other properties. Games like Grand Theft Auto 2 on the Game Boy Color played pretty much. I mean, it was harder because you had a smaller screen, but it was very much a Grand Theft Auto game. And Grand Theft Auto Chinatown Wars on the DS was very, very good. So I don't know why I was surprised. I don't think I should have been surprised, but I didn't expect a lot from this game, and when I finally got my hands on it, it was just like, wow, that's a lot of fun. So the game plays out in the stages, and you can save between stages. If you die, you get a continue screen. I think you have limited continues in this game, but
The rusty door led to an abandoned part
you
of
get
the street.
cutscenes. You know, it's a weird thing on the Game Boy Advance.
Something big was going down at Roscoe Street. Maybe that's why Alex had wanted to meet me here. Maybe not. One way or the other, I was going to find out.
Oop, wasn't paying attention, and I got shot. So yeah, 4 lives remaining, and you can retry and start the whole stage from scratch, or you can start the scene from scratch. Yeah. You make a good point, though, Ronnie. You know, they don't usually, even when they're licensing their stuff out or letting it be ported, they don't let people take their IPs and do bad things with them. And this is a perfect example of that. You have every right to look at Max Payne on the Game Boy Advance and just be like, that can't be good. Like, maybe it's an okay, like, side scroll or whatever, but it's not Max Payne. This is Max Payne. You know, this is... It's not as refined or as complicated as a PlayStation 2 or Xbox era game. But it's fun, and it captures sort of like all the essentials. You can go into bullet time, you kill a lot of dudes, there's a brooding storyline full of voice acting and twists and turns. Yeah, they got a lot of the level layout down. Like, it's extremely faithful. And especially if you enjoy a game like Shadowrun on the Super Nintendo, these kinds of controls are going to come pretty naturally to you. I'm making a lot of mistakes right now and not doing super great, but I think it's fair to say, Wursel, you can maybe back me up on this, that if you've played through the original Max Payne, you might even have some advantages going into this game. Being like, oh, I know what I have to do here. Like, I know where this thing that I'm looking for is. There's transparencies for enemies hidden behind walls. Yeah, Crusader No Remorse is a great comparison, Ronnie. I was changing weapons, and I got killed. Got an M4. So if I continue from here, I start back at the beginning of the level, and it saves from level to level. So it can be a little difficult challenge-wise, but if you're cautious and you make good use of your bullet time and don't get into unnecessary gunfights without the proper cover, you should be okay. But yeah, that's Max Payne for the Game Boy Advance. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's fast-paced. I think it's very faithful to the source material. I think it's a good example of what Game Boy Advance games could be. Because a lot of people say, like, "Oh, the Game Boy Advance is just a handheld Super Nintendo," and it is. But it also isn't, because so much time had passed and so many development tricks and things came out between those two systems that you would, if a game like this was on the Super Nintendo, it would be like a AAA must-play kind of game. And on the Game Boy Advance, because it was competing with so much, the hardware that was so much more powerful at the time, it's very easy to look at stuff like this and say, like, oh, a Game Boy Advance port of a PS2 or an Xbox game, like, why would you do that? It can't be as good. And it's not the same. It's not as good, but it's good in a different kind of way that I think makes it very, very, very worth visiting. So, it is time for the last game of the showcase of the night. I will be ending the stream afterwards and then coming right back to do some more streaming, so don't go anywhere unless you're here for just the Game Boy Advance stuff. Or if you're watching on YouTube, know that there's also a Twitch channel and you can watch all these things live. Isn't that fascinating? And as you guys also know, it is tradition for me to end the night with a slower-paced game, typically an RPG or something similar to it. And so I want to show you guys one of my favorite Game Boy Advance RPGs, because it's convoluted and kind of odd, but it takes a kind of no-nonsense approach to RPGs, and that is Riviera: The Promised Land. This was originally a WonderSwan Color game. It was then ported to the Game Boy Advance a couple years after that, and then ported to the PSP later. I think the PSP version usually sells for much cheaper, and is basically an upscaled version of the Game Boy Advance game. So if you're looking for a copy of this game, the PSP is probably your best bet. But on the Game Boy Advance, it is still really good, and my first exposure to this game. So, Riviera is your basic RPG.
Riviera, the Promised Land.
The voice acting isn't super great. It's, mid-2000s Atlas, very hit or miss. We're going to cut through a lot of the story. It's got demon hunters. It's got a lot of Norse mythology. There's a lot of Norse mythology reference to this game. So, what makes this game different from most RPGs is it cuts out all of the mid content. You don't really go to towns in this game. You don't look around and explore maps. You don't get lost in dungeons. it plays out in stages. So right away, the first thing you're seeing is it's giving me the option to save my game, which I will do, because why not? And we've got a stage where it says, okay, well, this is the Angels Memorial. Entry is now prohibited. Da 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 da. So we're going to enter the stage, and we're in a move phase, and so it's kind of a cutscene. And we get right away, we get put in a battle. So the one of the twists of this game as far as combat goes is that you have party members, but you can only bring 4 items into battle. And so what you do is you assign a weapon or an item to each character, and each character does different things with each item. So you can switch up. You know, like right now, it'll tell you what happens if each person, what kind of attacks they have if each person is using a weapon. And you also see a times infinity, because like Fire Emblem, items in this game have breaking points, which is frustrating for a lot of people, but at the same time it's very handy in this game because you're constantly going from dungeon to dungeon. There aren't really, like I said, no mid points, no mid content in this game. So you can only hold 16 items, which means that it's great to have these items that always are on, but you either have to be throwing stuff away and discarding things or using it up. And so you can also switch around who uses what items in your party, and that you get different attacks. Like, it was Ein's turn, so I used the other person's weapon, and it cast fire. There's an overdrive meter, so that's you can level techniques up, and characters can learn different moves with different abilities. So now it's Letta's turn, and I can choose which item he uses. So if he uses the Einherjar, he has no skill. He's just going to do a base attack. If he uses the Lorelei, you can see it says he has full experience to this. So if he does it, it's going to do a multi-hit attack called Divide. There's a 4-hit attack. And I'll tell you that certain hits have certain properties. So like there's an unblockable hit and a piercing hit. And all these things factor into what moves you want to use with which characters. But at the same time, you want to level them up with different weapons so they get access to new moves. Turn order is based on things such as base agility stats and what moves you use. So if you use a move that has a longer cooldown, it'll take longer for that person's turn to come up. So I beat the battle, and I get some points. I got a rank B for the fight, and I got 2 TP. Now TP is an interesting mechanic. I also got 3 potions. So by beating this area, we got a potion, and they explain potions restore health, don't waste items. You can check your items by pressing select. And so now I have options. I can go to the right to the next screen, or I can press the A button to look. And I can look at this stone pillar, but it costs me a TP. You can only investigate so many things. And so there's a lot of trial and error to this game, because if you investigate certain things, you will find items, or you'll trigger different events, or you can bypass certain battles. But you have a limited resource. You need to fight enemies to get TP to look at things and to investigate different areas. So if I look at this stone pillar, I spend 1 TP, and he says, how old is this? It's falling apart. And the cat says, let's get going. And that's it. That's all I get. So sometimes you might not get a whole lot. Sometimes it might do something later on that you don't realize. But we just move on to the next area. There's some more dialogue. Here's our boss asking us to explain what's going on right now. And then we move on to the next screen after the dialogue is done. And you have a map in the corner that shows you how the screens interconnect. Each stage usually has about 8 rooms, I think, and then a 9th room that you can unlock if you fulfill certain requirements, usually involving investigations. So see, I reached the 2nd room, and I can go back to the previous room. I can look at the faded floor, which will spend the last of my TP, or I can move on to the next screen. They take everything out of the RPG except for the fighting and the item management. Like, if you don't like going to towns, if you don't like talking to NPCs, if you don't like exploring and getting lost on a world map, you get the opportunity to just do sort of the base core things that an RPG has to offer. Now, you can also run when you come into it. When you get attacked, you can run, and sometimes you can do it, sometimes you can't. The reason why you might want to run is to set up your party differently, because it's not like you walk and find, it's not like you can pause the game and use a couple potions because you don't want to take a couple steps and trigger a random encounter. Or it's not like a game like Earthbound or Lufia where you walk into a room and you see lots of enemies and you go, okay, I need to heal. Because of the way this game is structured, you go from room to room and you don't know whether or not you're going to get attacked. And so you might want to try running if you walk into a room and you're being attacked and you're like, oh, I'm not ready for this. I want to use some potions, or I want to move my items around. It gives you the opportunity to to prepare for a battle and then go into the room again and face them.
Death to all sinners.
And there's a lot of little quirks to the battle system, like learning the different overdrives and learning how the rage meter works and things like that. There's a lot to this battle system, which is good because there's not a lot to the actual game. So I really think this is a fresh take on RPGs that's never I can't think of any other games like this. The way it's set up, it's sort of like a mix between like MacVenture games like Shadowgate or Deja Vu and an RPG. Tombs and Treasure, which I showed on the NES showcase, is sort of similar, but this doesn't have all the obtuse puzzle solving. It's just very much an RPG with elements of investigating and branching paths and the ability to look at different directions and different things. Alright, we're going to use a potion. Because my health is low. And you get more party members as the game goes on. And there's typical like RPG formation things. There's two formations in this game. There's an attack formation, which puts two of your party members in the front and one in the back. And it allows you to deal more damage, but also learn more physical-based attacks. And then there's the magic formation, which is one in the front and two in the back. And that typically gives you access to more spells and techniques that are less physical in nature. So you can switch between those as the situation calls for it. And our overdrive meter is full. The gremlin is dead. So now the other two party members move up into the front row because the person at the point is gone. You get these nice little enemy cutscenes with these the drawn portraits of even the random enemies when they get their big attacks to come out is a neat little touch. Alright, so my overskill is ready by switching over with this weapon. I can do my big skill.
sins shall be purged.
It just looks pretty neat. It's satisfying to do big, crazy attacks in an RPG. And the battles are longer than they are in your standard RPG, and I think that is important because of how truncated the rest of the gameplay is. It's good that the battles are more involved and take a little more time, because otherwise it would feel sort of like a flash game, or like, you know, not something that you would want to spend $40 to $60 on when it came out. I'm not sure how much it's going for now, but I'm pretty sure it's up there, because I don't think a lot of copies of this game were released, and it was kind of a sleeper hit. I know a lot of people who played this and instantly fell in love with it, but I don't usually see it on a lot of people's, you know, must-play lists or best GBA lists. Did not mean to do that. I was pressing buttons. See, the enemy has cracked my overdrive bar, so I'm stuck with just like base attacks. But it says my overdrive bar is shattered, so I can't use my overdrive. And you get more points based on how much time you spend in the battle. You get extra points for using finishers, and that gets you better items and better TP. So now they're explaining limited use items. There's nothing to look at here, and we can't move forward. So now they're going to explain the investigating system. Now we're in look mode. So now if I press up, I can look at this cliff. There's a ledge below. We can drop down from here. Every time you use the trigger in look mode, you lose 1 trigger point. If you don't have any, you can't look around. You can earn more by defeating enemies and by getting a good score in battle. So the better you do in battle, good finishers, quick finishes, you get more trigger points to find stuff in each area. Some triggers don't require TP. It'll tell you. It'll be red and it'll say 1 TP. How often do I change up my overlays? I've been doing it by like follower count typically. Like I when I hit 250, I was like I want to redo my overlay. So I'll probably think about doing another one when I hit like 500. I'm pretty happy with how this one looks. We'll be changing some of the sprites and things around and still cleaning it up. This is still an early version of the overlay, but I'm not very graphically inclined, so I kind of need other people to do that stuff for me. So we've reached area 1-2. We can save again. And start the next area. And right away we find a treasure chest. can spend 1 TP. Open the treasure chest. And we found 3 more potions. Let's go. Enemy encounter. So you have to raise your character's affinity with a certain item in order to give them access to new moves. Oh, 13 health. What's up, Sacrificial Toast? How's it going? We're probably going to play through another battle or 2 of this and then close out the showcase for the night, but I will be streaming more immediately afterwards. If you guys... let me hear from you in the chat. What would you guys like to see for the next couple of showcases? What systems or genres or things like that? We guy wants his Amiga showcase. I'll be completely honest with you guys, like I can look into it, but I never played the Amiga. You know, I've never played one, so I don't know what's good. I don't know what's good. I don't know what's popular. I don't know what is overlooked. Like I am the wrong guy to do that, at least right now. Maybe in the future I might start looking through the Amiga library, but like I don't know. I don't have the slightest idea. .3DO. You could do 3DO.
All right, we did it. All right.
I learned double slash. ColecoVision. That's another one. I've never played a ColecoVision. I don't know. I have no idea. When you learn a new skill, your stats increase. So you level up by leveling up your weapons, which is kind of a unique mechanic. Not unheard of, but still pretty different and pretty fun. MS-DOS, favorite Sierra games. I could do that. They're all pretty similar, but I could certainly do that. Let's look at this pile of rubble. I'm gonna take that rock. $500 points. I take another one? Nope. So now we have a branching path. We can go back to the room we were in, or we can go down the stairs or over the ledge. Let's look through this rubble. That's, oh, shiny object. Yeah, touch it. Yeah. Get those stats. Got some more points. FPS. It's an idea. Definitely an idea. Alright, so that's the first two areas of Riviera. Like I said, I think it's really interesting because it sort of strips down the RPG to its most essential elements. And I like it really is like a special take on everything. There's no part of this game that's just average. The weapon system draws from the breakable stuff that's in the Saga series and the Fire Emblem series. Learning new moves and leveling up through the weapons is reminiscent of games like Final Fantasy IX. Spending the TP to investigate things is pretty unique. I can't think of another game that has a system like that. And then you move in a way that's, almost like a text adventure where you just, all right, go this direction. Look at this. So, I like this game. I like all the games that we played today. Just going through them real quick. Wade Hickston's Counterpunch, Disney's Lilo and Stitch, Tiny Toon Adventures Scary Dreams, Konami Crazy Racers, Kuru Kuru Kururin, Guru Logic Champ, Metal Gunslinger, DK King of Swing, Max Payne, and Riviera the Promised Land. But that is the tip of the iceberg because, like I said before, guys, there are so many Game Boy Advance games that we could easily return to this well later on and look at 10 more, and 10 more, and 10 more. But I hope you enjoyed the showcase. We'll be back next week with another one. I'm going to go through these suggestions and figure out what works for me, and maybe ask some people on Facebook as well for their suggestions. Be sure to tune in next Thursday for another showcase. Not quite sure what yet, but we'll figure it out. And if you are watching live on Twitch right now, I'm speaking to you guys out there, not those guys on YouTube, but you guys. Don't go anywhere. I'm just going to stop the stream for a minute, come right back, and we'll play something else. I'm not sure what yet, but maybe we'll finish up Star Wars, I don't know, and move on to a different game. Or we got some new games because of the donors last month. Jason added Commander Keen Goodbye Galaxy and Keen Dreams to my backlog, and 1X Freak added Donkey Kong 64. So those are both new games that we'll be start playing through as well. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching the showcase. We'll see you next week or in a minute. Yeah.